In this video, I'm going to review the orthogonal hand with you guys. As you remember in class, there are three different axes of movement that we talk about. We have our y-axis, which is the thumb. We have our x-axis, which is your middle finger. And we have the index finger, which is our z-axis. There are two different types of movements that we talk about. We have rotational movements, which are movements around an axis or about an axis. We also have translational movements that are movements along an axis. For example, anytime you go towards a direction where your fingertips are pointing to, that would be a positive translational movement. For example, if I move my hand towards the camera, that would make it a positive Z movement. If I move it away from the camera back towards me, that would make it a negative Z movement. If I move my hand or my body up towards the ceiling, that would make it a positive Y movement. And down towards the floor would make it a negative Y movement. If I move my hand or my body to the left, in this case, where my middle finger is pointing to, that would be a positive X movement. And away from it, that would be a negative X movement. Now remember, those are all translational movements. Now, to add something else to that, let's talk about rotational movements. Things like flexion and or extension are considered rotary movements around an axis. For example, if I flex my body forward, that means I'm flexing or rotating around my x-axis. If I go into extension, the same thing applies. Now, the sign that tells you whatever you're looking at is a rotary movement versus a translational movement is having a theta added to that listing or to that name. For example, instead of a positive Z or positive X, it would read positive or negative theta Z or theta X. So let's go through some examples. If you rotate your body to the right, this direction, if I rotate my hand to the same direction, I will be seeing more of the back of my hand. So think of this as a negative movement. Anytime you see more of the palm of your hand, think of it as a positive movement. Anytime you see more of the back of your hand, make that a negative movement. So going back to the example I was giving a second ago, if I rotate my hand to the right, I am seeing more of the back of my hand, so that's a negative movement. The movement is happening around my y-axis in this direction, and it's a rotary movement. So the name for this would be negative theta Y. In contrast to that, if I rotate my hand to the left, I will be seeing more of the palm of my hand. That would make it a positive movement. So this would be a positive theta Y movement. With lateral flexion, if I laterally flex my body to the left, that's also a rotary movement. It's rotation around the z-axis. This way would make it a negative theta z. If I make it, or if I turn it to the right side, that would make it a positive theta z. The last movement would be flexion and or extension, which is around the x-axis. If I flex my body forward, I will be seeing more of the palm of my hand, making it a positive theta x. And if I extend backwards, that would be a negative movement, which is a negative theta x movement.